Right now, across 15 districts, a massive public health initiative is underway. Millions of doses of the COVAX booster are in transit, moving rapidly from cold storage to distribution hubs and straight into the arms of patients. Then, a red flag triggers at the National Pharmacovigilance Center. A localized safety signal emerges. Patients with a history of heart attack are experiencing an unexpected spike in brain strokes shortly after receiving the booster. The standard procedure identified is to update the drug's package insert, but a label update is a passive mechanism. It sits in a database or inside a folded piece of paper in a new carton, waiting to be read. A frontline physician administering a vaccine they've already prescribed hundreds of times this month will not proactively check the label for a new warning today. While the updated insert works its way through the supply chain, high-risk patients remain entirely exposed. Passive information systems fail in acute clinical crises. To protect patients immediately, regulators require a forced, active intervention. This exact emergency is why the direct healthcare professional communication exists. In the US, it is known as the DHCP letter. In Europe, it is the DHPC. This communication is not a corporate press release, and it is entirely divorced from medical marketing. It is a legally binding risk minimization tool mandated by health authorities to alter clinical behavior immediately. The burden of execution falls on the marketing authorization holder, the pharmaceutical company, who must draft and fund the distribution. However, regulatory bodies like the FDA or EMA exercise total control over the approval of its contents. This creates an intense operational bottleneck. The manufacturer must deploy this communication with emergency-level speed, yet execute it with absolute bureaucratic and legal precision. A DHPC is a precision regulatory instrument. It is designed to instantly override standard medical practices and force an immediate adaptation on the front lines. Routine adverse events are monitored and compiled over time. A DHPC is deployed only when a specific regulatory severity threshold is crossed. To categorize the threat, regulators use a precise decision tree. It divides safety concerns into two distinct paths: routine updates and immediate dissemination. The immediate pathway is activated by highly specific triggers: market suspensions, restrictions of an indication, or the establishment of new contraindications. In our COVAX scenario, the spike in strokes requires barring that demographic from the booster. This establishes a new contraindication, locking the manufacturer into the immediate pathway. From here, the FDA mandates one of three specific letter formats. These are the Important Prescribing Information Letter, the Important Correction of Drug Information Letter, or the Important Drug Warning. Because the COVAX risk involves a severe, life-threatening adverse reaction that dictates a hard stop in administration, the manufacturer must use the Important Drug Warning format. The decision is no longer strategic. Once the clinical data crosses the severity threshold, the pharmaceutical company is legally compelled to execute the warning. Drafting this warning introduces a unique constraint. Regulators govern the DHPC just as strictly by what it excludes as by what it includes. In a medical crisis, the signal-to-noise ratio must be perfect. Any supplementary corporate messaging dilutes the critical safety instructions. As a result, the document is heavily restricted. The manufacturer is explicitly banned from including commercial information, advertising claims, or any promotional language. They must also exclude details regarding non-safety investigations, which distract the reader. Finally, complex debates over clinical study design are removed, leaving a single, isolated block of core warning text. A prescribing physician in a busy clinic needs actionable parameters. They do not have time to evaluate a data debate while a patient waits in the exam room. Attempting to soften the blow with promotional language carries severe stakes. Regulators will reject the draft, invalidate the warning, and issue severe penalties. The ultimate power of a DHPC lies in this negative space. Stripping away all corporate noise guarantees the physician cannot miss the immediate risk. A perfectly drafted warning, however, achieves nothing if it intercepts the wrong audience. Alongside the letter, the manufacturer must submit a dissemination plan. This is a mandated strategy mapping the delivery of the warning directly to the stakeholders impacted by the specific risk. Looking at this healthcare network diagram, the primary target node for our COVAX scenario is obvious: the prescribing physicians who manage patients with a history of heart attacks. But the plan must also include surrounding nodes. Dispensing pharmacists and administering nurses receive the DHPC so they can act as secondary checkpoints, preventing the vaccine from reaching the patient. While the core mechanics remain the same globally, regional terminologies differ slightly. The FDA designates this correspondence as a Dear Healthcare Provider, or DHCP, letter. In the European Union, the EMA calls it a Direct Healthcare Professional Communication, or DHPC. To enforce transparency, regulatory agencies simultaneously publish these letters directly on their public portals, as seen in this real-world example of an EMA release for a COVID-19 vaccine. A comprehensive dissemination plan creates an inescapable net. It intercepts every possible touchpoint between the dangerous product and the patient. With the letter drafted and the network mapped, the process hits its final structural constraint. The plan cannot move forward without explicit final sign-off from the regulatory agency. In regions like the EU, this sign-off triggers a strict localization requirement. The core DHPC must be rapidly translated into the local language of every targeted member state before distribution. Deployment then relies on a dual-pronged approach. Manufacturers utilize mass physical mailings alongside direct digital channels to maximize immediate visibility. In an immediate dissemination scenario, the timeline is extreme. The entire pipeline, from drafting the core text to the physical delivery of these envelopes, must happen in a matter of days. Regulators frequently require the manufacturer to track the distribution process and formally report on the successful receipt of these communications. Simultaneously, pharmacovigilance teams begin analyzing incoming post-market data. They are looking for a drop in the adverse event rate, verifying that the DHPC actually altered clinical behavior on the ground. The execution pipeline takes an isolated data anomaly in a database and transforms it into a globally synchronized defensive action. We can see the immediate aftermath of this deployment across the 15 districts administering COVAX. Clinics intercept the communication and instantly halt the booster administration for anyone with a history of myocardial infarction. Relying solely on a passive package insert update would have caused a catastrophic delay, leaving high-risk patients continuously exposed while supply chains caught up. The DHPC serves as the ultimate emergency brake within the pharmacovigilance ecosystem. Its effectiveness relies on 3 strict pillars: triggered by severe data thresholds, stripped of all promotional noise, and targeted with absolute precision. Executing this process compliantly protects patient lives. It also maintains the necessary trust healthcare providers place in regulatory safety systems. As the at-risk population is successfully shielded, the stroke signal stabilizes and the immediate medical crisis is resolved. Mastering the DHPC process guarantees that when post-market data shifts unexpectedly, patient safety remains uncompromised.